So you started no-dig gardening, I don't know, it's like 1983 or something I read.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing it a long time, and so I got.
What got you started doing it?
Well, it was I made 1.5 acres of beds by hand after rotivating, and then I thought, what am I going to do? I don't want to, smash up my lovely beds with. If you grab the corner, what these two beds are is same plantings. One bed is no dig, and this bed is dug. I dig it every December. And then we compare the growth.
But look at the soil difference too.
Well, they're looking quite different already, aren't they?
Wow, that's phenomenal, really. That's a great example to have, isn't it?
These are very useful for teaching.
Yeah.
Because, people can just stand here and just look at the difference.
Yeah.
And it varies through the year. The soil, that's
sandy
manure
looking.
and homemade compost, and that's soil, but the same amount of compost dug in. So same ingredients.
Yeah, right.
But that's the soil on top.
Yeah.
And look at particularly up here, the brassicas, the turnips. Those are the same plants.
Yep. So were these from seed or from seedling?
Everything's planted, so it's sown in the
Right,
greenhouse,
okay.
transplanted, except for carrots. You can see the carrots coming up.
Oh, yeah.
With a few radish just to mark the line. Mm. But this is an example of where we can suffer slug damage, little seedlings like that.
Oh, okay.
Very vulnerable. I'm finding that wooden sides actually tend to encourage slugs.
So I've just noticed that too, that most of your beds, like mine, no edging, just go straight into the path. So what's the benefit you've found, apart from you saying slugs, what other benefits have you found for that?
They're less moisture loss. So in dry weather these sides dry out more.
Yeah, yeah.
Save money.
Yeah, that's true.
And actually grow more because I'm finding more, if you get sloping sides like that, the plant's rooting into
Yeah, and you get more surface area, really, don't you?
And last summer when it was really dry, the edge ones, the edge plants grew bigger than the ones in the middle because they could take the moisture from the paths.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Which would be struggling here. But here we had frost damage though. That's the, I've not seen that. Have you seen peas like this, Steph? It's just...
No, but it's happening.
Shocking.
I've been seeing photos, people have been showing them on, we've got a No Dig Facebook group.
Yeah.
And people are putting up pictures like going, oh, what's happened?
Yeah, right.
And it is just, I think it's because the weather, it's going from really warm to minus whatever.
Yep.
And the peas, like us, don't know what's going on.
Everyone's been saying that everything's going a bit odd.
I don't know if I've ever seen that on peas at this time of year. No. They're not dying, but it's quite a big setback. And you can see the frost damage to the potatoes too. But again, that's only a...
But the new growth in the peas is nice and green.
Yeah, exactly. And these are like multi-sown turnips. They're starting to look nice.
They look great. So do you eat all the leafy tops of all your
if we need them?
Turnips and...
Yeah, I mean, as it happens, we've usually got so much salad leaf.
You probably know you wouldn't need it.
But yeah, and the radish too. We just harvested the first radish this morning.
Oh, beautiful.
And there were about twice as many there as there were there. But yeah, they're really nice. So that's multi-sown in the greenhouse, planted in.
Yep. And so you find that you get better growth when it's multi-sown like this as opposed to...
Well, it's a kind of companion planting.
Yeah, right.
They're going in the ground with their friends.
Yep. Well, that's true, isn't it? And I guess the thing is too that you're not damaging the roots so much when they're grown like that and then they're put together.
Anyway, really, if you're transplanting. But they do definitely, I think, plants as clumps. They thrive more, as long as they've got enough space, obviously. Really happy.
I like that. Planting with friends.
And the beetroot too, that's multi-sown, 4 in a clump. And then the lettuce, we'll pick the outer leaves. But you know what is going on here? Look at those beetroot compared to those.
Yeah, it's complete. They've got a whole new set of leaves already.
Yeah, it's something about, I can't help wondering if the digging isn't breaking we know it's breaking the mycorrhizal fungi.
Yeah.
The threads, and maybe then that stops them getting hold of nutrients until they can rebuild it.
Yeah.
Because it's just this early phase of growth.
That looks like they've done nothing since you put them in. They look like...
They've just gone red.
They're embarrassed because they're in the dug bed.
Here you've got a nice example of the successional planting that I'm doing. So, broad beans in that bed. This was broad beans last year. And then when they finish, in our climate that just about works. You've got, take out the broad beans late June, plant these in July.
Yeah.
And they're just peaking now. It's a variety called Claret.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Claret F1.
So how long do these keep going for? You just keep...
Well, about a
harvesting
month actually,
them? Yeah, right.
just ticking over. And I
How soft that was.
also popped in those parsley there. I like, I'm doing that more and more. So, you know, interplanting
Yeah.
where
yeah.
possible.
Well, because you've got lots of space, really, haven't you?
Yeah, but what I'm pleased about with these as well is how they've stood up, and quite often they fall over.
Right.
And I think that's partly no dig, because, you know, I'm always saying you can walk on your beds, you know, because people are worried about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And because it's firm,
Yeah.
it's open, but it's firm. So like those plants there, they're clearly rooting right down into the ground, otherwise they wouldn't be standing up.
No, that's right.
Because I was teaching yesterday and someone said, you know, they were clearly under the impression that all these plants are just rooting in the compost on top.
Yeah.
And she said, well, it can't get into the ground below because it's all hard. No, but it's firm, you know, that's good. That's what you want.
So that's actually interesting that you are walking on your beds, because that's something that I've always kind of said, oh, you know, once you've done it, even if it's no dig, you know, don't step on it. But it's...
Yeah, I mean, I
No,
do.
I think
I'm not doing it all the time, but, well, you know, you can feel, I think,
Yeah.
that you don't sink in, basically.
It has enough of a structure to hold it without it.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So once one's finished, what's your process? Do you ever put materials like this back down into that and then you compost
Yeah,
on top?
We're putting compost on once a year
Yeah.
for 2 crops. So like that, this had broad beans, and then we won't put any more compost on until next winter.
Yeah.
So this will have broad beans followed by broccoli. So we don't put anything on in the summer.
And so do you leave the broad beans on the ground, or broad beans go to your compost?
Do you know,
or-
I did that once when we had a really hot, dry summer.
Yep.
And it's a good method if you've got that. But
Yep.
normally it's wet and damp,
Yeah. Right.
and then that would just lead to slugs.
Yeah. Okay.
So they go on the compost.
So and then this is all your compost.
Yeah, I'll show you the compost in a minute. Yeah, so compost once a year. I'm using, well, in this area it's probably about 6 tons, I should think, of compost, what you can see here.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how quickly you can get through it. But I'm making about 5 or 6 tons there, actually. So that leaves the rest of the garden. There's still quite a bit of more. I need about 12 tons a year. I
So
reckon.
the food that you grow here, this is not just for your consumption, is it? You have you sell it through a box system, or how do you sell it?
Mostly salad bags, actually.
Bags, right.
That's because that's the most profitable.
And so you've got education and salad bags, and so that's
bit
kind
busy
of
sometimes.
yeah, you can imagine.
We're picking twice a week. We're picking, you know, like tomorrow morning and Friday morning, and that's quite intensive.
So you have people who subscribe to your salad bags, or how do you do it?
Yeah, local shops and restaurants.
Okay, right. Yep.
They pretty much all go to just, well, the town I live in, Bruton.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's pretty much just
So
one
very
place.
few miles in that. That's fantastic.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, 4 miles.
And you
4
can-
miles.
yeah.
We'll
Right, that's
see the-
really that's really very
Really
local.
close, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when other people are coming here to do the workshops, you know, are they coming here to learn to become market gardeners as well, or are they looking just to do their hobby?
It's mostly gardeners,
Right.
but we do weekend courses, and they're quite popular with people wanting to market garden.
Yeah. Okay.
There's
So-
a strong interest in that, and no dig actually. It's often been said that you can't do it on a big scale because you need too much compost or whatever it might be, but there are people scaling up now,
Yeah.
working out ways of doing that.
And so you think that in order to have a small market garden and to sell locally, that's a really viable local enterprise for people? Like how
Yeah,
much
it's
of your income
viable
do you
in
think
that
you could...
I think it's very hard to make what I would call a full living.
Yeah.
Obviously, it depends how you want to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we're selling here over £20,000 a year, and growing another 5,000 probably.
Yeah. Right.
So it's a worthwhile sum.
Yeah. That's right.
And plus you're not having to buy any of your own
Exactly.
food at the same time as well, which is another...
You know. How
Absolutely, and,
Yeah.
and the other thing is the quality
Yeah.
and the flavour.
Yeah.
But you know, the whole nutritional thing now, where they're finding out about the microbes,
Yeah.
that's so much in our favour. People who grow at home,
Yeah. That's
because
right.
you're just getting the health.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I guess too, because you've got this here, it's the basis for your other part of your livelihood, which is education, isn't it? And so it makes it
It's all here.
fantastic. Right at home, and a demonstration education centre. It's brilliant.
Well, people love looking around because they can just see how it works.
So how many days is your garden open, really?
2 days a year we do open day to the public.
Okay. And then how many workshops
And then
that you
we're
run in your garden?
probably doing, hard to keep a track of, actually about 25 actually.
Yeah, right. And then you're doing talks all over because I know you're going. Where
Yeah,
you
really.
go to Ireland very soon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Sussex tomorrow, and then, yeah, Ireland this weekend.
Yeah, right.
We're going to Sweden in June, actually, to Ridgedale,
Right.
Richard Perkins, and Luxembourg in September. And
So what's
travelling a
the
bit.
so the interaction between permaculture and the sorts of things you do here? I know you've had, you know, one of your books has been published by a permaculture organisation, and do people into permaculture come here to learn how to do the intensive parts? What have you see the interaction?
Yeah, we don't discuss it much. We don't use that word much.
No.
But this clearly is very, in terms of soil management,
Yep.
this is very permaculture.
Yep.
But I don't phrase it like that because for me it's no dig biointensive, or however you like to put it, more along those lines, and maximum production from a small area
Yep.
by looking after the soil in the best possible way.
Yep.
So I'm not really looking so much at trying to do perennial things and all that.
Yep.
You know.
But I mean, this is, for me, I'm looking at it going, well, this is a perfect zone 0 and zone 1 in a permaculture system. You know, you have your house with the solar panels and the conservatorium, and then the intensive zone 1 garden with the compost, and everything's close, your income's close, your food's close. And, you know, so from a permaculture design perspective, it kind of seems to fit perfectly.
I can see that. But I was lucky too. I mean, when this place came on the market, I moved here only 6 years ago.
Yeah, right.
You know, it couldn't have been better actually.
Yeah.
You got the house right in the middle of the land.
And you can look straight out onto this. Yeah, and Steph was saying that when you arrived here, you said you're the only person who arrived with a shovel or something to check out the soil in the backyard.
I wasn't looking at the house, I was looking at the soil.
It was kind of, there's a house.
yeah, that looks livable. But what about this?
What about this one?
I mean, it's pretty. I mean, is this an uncommon thing to be able to get this much land next to a house in a township?
Yeah. Sadly, partly because whenever it happens, the people with horses have got a lot of money often. They'll buy it, and the people who want to grow food haven't got so much money.
So how much land have you got in this?
This is the total property is 3/4 of an acre. Are you happy with acres?
Yep, acres, perfect. Yep.
And the cropped area is 1/4 of an acre.
Right. Okay. So it's about the same as ours. We have about an acre, and it's about 1/4 of an acre that we work on with our gardens as well. So similar scale.
Right.
Yeah.
You're probably growing a bit more fruit.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, what I've got is I've got a line of apple trees there. So I've got loads of apples. That's our most native fruit. Really easy to grow.
So do you have different types of apples, or is there
Different varieties.
so from early fruiting to late?
It's from September to March, so that's the winter months.
I'm so jealous of you being able to grow apples. Anything to do with
It's
apples.
crazy. And you can grow
Like bananas and
bananas.
avocados and mangoes and all that, but you know, to be able to grow apples, you know, you know,
I'll trade you for some mangoes.
Wouldn't that be nice if we could just easily do that? But you know that thing, you know, we go into the stores, even the organic stores, to try and get some really nice apples, and they're always a bit pasty, and I just miss them.
I'm afraid that we've just finished the last one. But yeah, and then we're doing pears and plums and things, you know, a bit just odds and ends really, but it's more veg than fruit.
So
Grow
can you
more
just?
fruit
Oh, do you?
at
Right.
home,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
than here.
What's this little plant here? We were eating this the other day.
Oh, that's Claytonia, winter purslane.
Winter purslane.
So that
Very nice.
only crops in the winter, and it's just coming up to flowering time. Yeah, it's really beautiful at this time of year because you've got the flowers actually on the leaf.
Oh yeah, that is so unusual.
Sort of, I think it's male and female flowers.
Yeah.
And when I put those in the salad bag, people really like that.
Yeah. And this one here, what's?
That's Chervil.
Oh, okay.
And that you might be too hot for that. I don't know. It really likes it cool.
Yeah, we don't have that at all.
I mean, have a taste if you want. It's like aniseed. And that is best sown late summer. I sow that late July, not in the spring.
Yeah, right.
If you sow it in the spring, it just flowers.
Yeah. We have sort of like a tarragon. The Russian tarragon is my kind of aniseed flavour.
Right, okay, yeah. And that spinach is just superb from an August sowing. So that was sown second week of August, and it's been sitting there all winter. We've harvested already a lot,
Yeah.
and now it's coming back again in the spring. So that's another nice example of fitting in with the flowering time. That flowers in June.
Yeah, okay.
So if you sow it in May, forget it, it'll just flower.
So do you do any of your own seed saving here as well?
Yeah, I'm doing the easier ones, so lettuce, French bean, tomato and pea.
Yeah.
Beyond that, like spinach, you know, you'd really need 4, 5 or 6 plants to
that's right.
cross-pollinate.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot of space and
is,
looking
it is.
after.
And so
I do want to do that.
where's a good source of your seeds in this country?
Well, I was just going to say Bingenheim in Germany actually.
Oh, okay, right.
But there's also the seed co-op in
Right.
Lincolnshire, the Biodynamic Seed
Yep.
and Real
Okay.
Seeds.
Yep.
You've probably heard of them. Have you Real Seeds?
I have heard of them, but I've never been there.
They're a lot of homegrown.
Yeah.
And a very ethical attitude.
Yeah,
So all
right.
the seeds that they send,
Yeah.
they actually tell you how to save them.
Oh, beautiful.
So
That's
some of them
really
obviously
nice.
it's really hard,
Yeah.
like squash, it will just
Yeah, yeah.
cross-pollinate.
Yeah.
But things that you can,
Yeah.
you get the instructions.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's so
So in
good.
a way, they're trying to
Get
stop their
themselves-
customers being their customers, but that's their ethos.
Well, it is. I mean, I guess the thing is that there's always new people who need to get them, and the more you spread it out, the more we're kind of not depending on the,
Do you want
the
to have a
big
quick
seeds.
look at the compost?
I'd love to see your compost system.
This is the current one, and that's like a 6-month-old one, so you can sort of see the difference. But
So it's quite large. So I'd always done composting in 1 by 1 by 1. So yours is quite a significant bit more. And why is that? Is
are you
that
talking meters?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, this is 1.5.
Yeah. So is
But
that to
then-
get more heat?
Yeah, it does. But you know, well, actually, no. I was going to say I'm bigger garden, but I might be clearing more stuff, but also I'm scrounging more, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Coffee. Like to see some coffee there.
Yep.
Spent hops. You know, I'll use anybody's waste. And this little
people
tool.
dropping stuff off, or you go
Yeah.
out and collect it?
Yeah, the cafe guys do.
Yeah, fantastic.
So
Brilliant.
there you can see. Also, I'm putting quite a bit of
wow.
soil in at the
that's
moment.
really warm. That's
It is
beautiful.
quite hot, isn't it?
Nice.
So that'll be about a month old. What I just brought up there. But I just happen to have a.
Grows, it's all full of caffeine.
Yes, that's right.
These. Do you ever do that? Measure the
Yeah.
temperature.
Yeah.
I like that because it just tells you how active the heap is. And at the moment
That's looking
we're up
good.
really where I want to be, which is between 55 and 70, say.
Yeah, it's still going
Celsius.
up. We're almost 50.
Because 55 for killing the weed seeds. But if
Yeah,
you go
right.
over 70, I think you start to lose fungi.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And do you
Well-
leave it long enough for worms to start inhabiting it? Or
yeah,
is it-
that's up there. They're starting to come in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
there
so
it is, nearly
66.
70. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've solid sides too, and I find that helps. It doesn't get quite so hot then at the side. So,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
but it
Fantastic.
keeps the warmth in.
So how long does it take you to get from the beginning of a pile to going out? How long does it take you?
Between 8 and 10 months on average.
Yeah, okay.
I
And
keep
how
all the
much do you
dates up
turn
here,
it?
so
Oh,
we've got a
right,
record
okay.
of when the heat was started and when we turned it,
Oh, brilliant.
and then see
Yeah,
when you
it's
used
a
it.
very
And
easy way to do it, isn't it?
yeah, it's like this could be used now, and this is 8 months old, 6 to 8 months.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So yeah, we turn it once, and that really helps.
So just once?
Yeah,
Yep.
so that breaks up the lumps and means that it's more even quality. And it means you save time when you're spreading it actually.
Yeah, yeah.
But then this is getting younger as we go along, so you can see it's not quite so broken down
Yeah.
there.
So how thick do you put it on your gardens when you put it out in winter time?
Just under 2 inches, about something like that.
Yeah, right.
Enough to fully cover the soil.
Yep.
And I'm finding that is enough for the year,
Yeah.
for 2 crops.
So it's interesting. I mean, when I first start an area, let's say if I was about to do a garden here, the first thing I'd learnt to do, and it was after I started doing no-dig garden. It was back in '92 or something when we had a city farm and the ground was so compacted. So I always got a fork and I never turned it, but I just put it in and I opened it. And I think you might have mentioned something on the YouTube channel about that. And it's like, so it's not something you
That's
ever
right,
do.
yeah.
And it's an interesting thing because I'd been thinking about that, and I'm going to start doing some trials to see how some sections go where I don't fork it, where I do fork it on compacted ground.
sounds very worthwhile, because
I don't do
I
any
of that forking.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's fascinating because,
Well, for me, if you've got, that's grass, but if it was
Yeah.
lots of weeds,
yeah,
that means the soil is really open, it's full of their roots.
yeah, that's
They're
right.
thriving.
So
So as long as you can kill them.
I leave the grass, I leave the roots, I leave
sure.
everything. I grab all
Yeah.
the weeds and everything
Yeah.
around, just lay it on top, and then I put compost on top.
Yeah, well, I just think
So you don't need-
but I don't think
You don't need to fork. Well,
That's
I'm
what I
going to
couldn't-
try. All right, I'm going to try that and
But
see
yeah,
what
do a
happens.
trial. That's what we're doing there actually. We've got
Yeah,
3
okay.
strips
Yep.
where we're growing same veg, and one of the strips we fork
Yep.
once a year,
Yeah.
and just to see what difference it makes.
Yeah.
And over 5 years of doing that, the yield is 5% lower where we forked.
Okay.
Because I think it's probably breaking those fungal threads a bit.
Yeah. Well, I wonder whether it's because I do it just in the beginning to kind of open it out. I don't fork all the time,
Okay.
and it's just to help helped decompact what's going on.
You think?
I think that was my theory. And in the initial time when we were doing trials down at the City Farm, we found that the plants that grew up, like corn, they would grow up and then they would just kind of fall over because their roots hadn't got in because it was such a hard pan.
Oh, okay. Well, then that is slightly different.
So we have experimented, but,
Yeah.
but I wonder whether...
But I don't think that's common. I think most of us wouldn't have a pan, as you put it.
No. So I think maybe I need to sort of clarify that when I'm telling people
Yeah.
about that. If you have a really compacted site, because this was where houses were, they'd been taken off and it was very compacted.
Right, okay.
So maybe if you're just starting like this.
Yeah.
So if you were to start right here, right now, what would you do?
Well, usually I put a cardboard first, and that just to help slow down the weed growth through the compost.
Yeah.
Cardboard followed by compost, as simple as that. And then plant straight into the compost on the same day if you want.
And so you don't worry about the roots not getting through the compost?
No, through the cardboard.
Through the cardboard. sorry,
Yeah, because it's about 2 months, I reckon, and it's breaking
Gone
down.
anyway. Yeah.
So they just explore the compost to
Yeah,
start.
yeah.
I mean, that's how this all created, really, and it's worked really well.
Yeah,
But
obviously.
the cardboard's there for long enough to slow down the
Yeah.
upgrowth of the weed.
And so how do you manage your weeds on an ongoing basis? I mean, in the subtropics,
We were just doing some weeding this morning, just checking, like, these are beetroot here that we planted 3. When I say we, by the way, that's me and Leon. So I got one full time, and I'm about 25 hours a week at the moment. It's
Working
about
here?
70, 75 hours a week to run everything here.
wow, okay.
That's a lot of that's picking
Yeah.
for selling.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those beetroot went in the ground 3 weeks ago, and we took off the cover to see if there are any weeds, and basically there weren't any. It's like there are not many weeds growing here.
No, that's phenomenal.
Partly because I'm getting my compost hot,
Yep.
so not many weed
Yep.
seeds, and undisturbed soil.
Yep.
Just
And how do you manage your edge from it going in? You just
that's more work actually.
you just go along with a shovel and
or long handle
trimmer?
shears or
okay, right.
whatever. Yeah, I try and avoid.
So just to avoid that going in.
Yeah, because that's always trying to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wants to be there.
Edges take as much time as the middle actually.
Yeah. Managing the edges.
Yeah. But the middle part there,
Helps me a lot.
we do a little bit of hoeing in March and April. Well, that's mainly weed seeds, if a bit of cow manure or something.
Right.
And after that, it's the occasional hand weeding.
Yeah.
It's absolutely easy.
So this is a really
Oh, you seen one?
That's
Oh,
that is the weed
my
of
word.
the garden.
So tell us about what you're doing with these white sheets.
Oh yeah, the fleece.
White sheet. Yeah.
You can see how the plants are happy pushing it up, and they're much greener and lusher than they would be if it wasn't there. Because what it does is, at the moment, day like today, it's April the 8th, which means we're 18 days after the equinox. In other words, we're equivalent to early September at the moment in terms of daylight,
Yeah.
and yet you look at the growth and it's not that much. So we basically in British spring we got a spare daylight but not enough warmth.
Yeah.
So the fleece is converting the spare light into warmth. That's how I explain it.
Right. Okay.
And people worry about it keeping the light out, but actually, most plants can hardly use all the light there is at the moment because it's too cold. So it traps the warmth.
Interesting. One of the things I know, we were just down at the Eden project and inside the Mediterranean biome, and the plants in there had these phenomenally large leaves. And I was asking them about that, and they were saying, well, we think it's because there's less light that's coming through, and so the leaves are actually getting bigger to try and get. So the lemon balm leaves were massive, and it was just the most bizarre thing. I've never seen. They were like monster plants, and I was wondering whether this, the diffused light through that would actually encourage bigger leaf growth, possibly, just based on that observation there.
I've never noticed that actually, but I only use it late March and through April. By May it would be too hot.
Okay.
It's just to get plants underway.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing there with those beetroot, I'm really pleased with that. For me that's right where I'd like them to be in early April. We'll be picking beetroot there by the middle of May, which is really early for the UK.
So I have another question about watering. So do you rely mostly on rain, or do you need to do lots of watering as well?
Last summer when it was really dry, and also because I'm growing a lot of salads.
Yes, of course.
I don't water things like beetroot, broad beans, but salad plants.
Right. So they basically look after themselves, you're saying?
Pretty much. I mean, there might be an extreme example. I can't think of when I last watered broad beans actually, but generally, most plants, they're surviving pretty well.
Just from the rains?
From-
What's
yeah.
How much rainfall do you get?
We get around 800 mil.
And that's spread out quite
And it's-
evenly.
yeah,
It's not in great big meter dumps.
I realise from being on Instagram that we have a lot to be thankful for in the UK climate. Canadians saying like, oh no, we're still snowed in and that kind of thing. But yeah, we get about 70, 80 mil a month.
Yeah,
So-
like just
Or
regular
60,
snow.
70.
So if you've got
Yeah.
the soil that can hold that, and
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, certainly with no dig, not only you not disturbing and losing moisture, but
yeah,
also keeping all those fungal threads there. That
yeah,
because you know how fungi can get into crevices that roots
Yeah,
can't.
yeah. yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, you can see by the sort of glow and gloss of those.
It looks beautifully healthy, doesn't it?
Looking really good.
Yeah.
They just got a little bit damaged by the frost. That's why there's a bit of stem damage where one or
Yeah,
two that are leaning over.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, that's really good for early April. So yeah, everything that's planted up is
Now what have you got under
frost
here?
hardy plants, except yeah, this is peas for shoots, and
Oh, peas for shoots, right?
quite interesting how they've. Oh, can you feel the warmth? I was feeling the warmth coming out of there.
Yeah, I can actually. It's really quite warm.
It's a good cloche effect, and
Yeah, good.
as we go further along, there's quite a difference because that end was leeks, and I put on some new compost, and they're not growing as well as up here, where this has just been bare over winter from a crop of chicory in December.
Yep.
And we put the compost on in December, and look how healthy they are. I'm really pleased with these pea shoots. So we're picking these.
So how often do you pick?
There you go.
Thank you.
About weekly. So we'll be doing
Oh, it's delicious.
first pick tomorrow. Yeah.
Really
Hey,
nice.
Steph, do you want one?
So how often do you so you pick weekly, and how long will you be able to keep these going
Is the
for?
cameraman allowed to eat? Yeah, for 2 months they should crop.
Okay.
So if we can get them in early, because peas don't really start flowering until early June, so
Yeah.
that gives a long picking time.
Fantastic.
Something I've been really working on with my teaching is getting the timings out there more. And a lot of people I've noticed are quite afraid to sow peas early.
Yeah.
Although they do get a bit of frost damage, like you can see there, they
Yeah.
generally survive, and you get this lovely early crop.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Because we got this thing that we call the hungry gap, which is May actually. You know, it's full on spring, but there's not much to eat because
Yeah,
everything's
yeah.
still growing.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's a way of getting around that.
So what are the ones you said again that can go through the winter? So you've got the spinaches, the leeks, obviously.
Leeks are brilliant.
Yeah.
They've got another month, but they're just starting to go to flowering. See again, multi-stones.
Yeah, all in their little
All in a
families.
clump.
Yeah.
Yeah, family. Yeah.
Do you eat the tops as well?
Not much
no.
actually. Well, I do. I like the green up to about there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What are you doing? Sotos and things.
Oh yeah,
Soups.
just yeah. And I was talking to someone just the other day, and they were saying they use them for stews and soups
Right,
and all
yeah.
different sorts of things.
I put them
We
in
do
the
quite a
salad
bit, don't we?
food.
Yeah,
the
right.
stuff we've done at the weekend.
Yeah. Okay.
You use as much as you can.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
cut off where it's gone a bit. And this
Yeah.
is
Can you
pale
grow leeks
granite.
in your?
Well,
They quite like it cool, don't they?
marginally, yeah.
Right.
So it's not a major one. The one that I do a lot of is perennial Welsh onion. That seems to just grow beautifully. So
I've got that at home.
Yeah.
It grows like it's a
Yeah,
bonkers. stuff.
yeah,
It just
yeah.
keeps going.
I wish I could grow more leeks.
I've just sown this year's leeks, so they're one of the few vegetables that is in the ground for.
Right. So how long will these? How long?
They're-
How old are these ones?
They're just starting to flower.
And you
Right.
can
So
eat
they
that.
are-
You can eat that as well. You can use it just like a garlic scape.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah, saute or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
really yummy.
Yeah, I'd never even. Well, I guess I've never got to the point of growing
I
a leek
know,
properly
yeah.
enough for it to go to seed. So that is a new food.
But they're beautiful, aren't they, too, with
They're
that
gorgeous.
purple on the leaf.
Is that a particular variety, this purple leafed one? Or just-
Well, it's not meant to be particularly, but it just has gone.
Yeah, it's
I've not
gorgeous.
seen it before.
Yeah.
I do grow a purple leaf one,
Okay.
and it's the cold weather that makes it go purple.
Oh,
I got
really?
it from Real Seeds.
Right.
I forget its name. It's something
Okay.
French.
Right, if we walk down this way.
What are those big bulbous things over there?
Yeah, I was just going to show you.
Ever grown?
Do you
before?
not recognise?
No, I don't recognise them. Oh, are they like a big massive turnip or something, or
Well, yeah, they're related. Swede
Swede? Right.
or rutabaga for Americans. But they need eating actually because they're just starting to flower.
So how do you eat that?
Oh, really nice. Actually, just boiled and mashed with butter.
So you just the whole so that it's For me, if I saw something like that in my garden, I'd think, well, it'd just be so woody and.
Oh yeah, no,
That's the
but they're
interesting
not.
thing I'm
That's the interesting thing I'm finding.
When
When plants are grown in this lovely rich
the
soil,
roots don't go woody.
the roots don't go woody. They
Wow,
just get
that's
big.
amazing.
So they're only
Yeah.
about 20.
So they're only about 20 here.
we
but
haven't quite finished.
That's why we haven't quite finished.
And do you eat the leaves as well, or you don't need to, obviously, because you've got. so
Don't
many
need to
others?
really, but you could do actually. And actually, that that is really nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to taste some?
Sure.
Because that's like a broccoli. Any flowering brassica at this time of year.
It's nice raw in salads as well as the
Delicious.
the Swede.
Oh right, you just
And
sliced it up
yeah,
and.
you can cube it up and roast it as well, like a potato.
nice.
And I mean, look how beautiful these are. That's Freckles lettuce.
Freckles. I can grow freckles lettuce where I am.
Great.
A lot of I mean, I only do open-hearted lettuces. I only do open-hearted brassicas. Yeah.
But then we're planting like lots of varieties along there, and it just looks so pretty when you.
It does, doesn't it?
It's one of my favourite plants to grow for just the appearance, and it makes the garden look so nice.
And I guess that with your salad bags too, having all the different types of lettuces and colours and.
Yeah.
You get the benefit on the ground and then on the plate as well.
And do you have sort of spicy Mizunari rocket type plants to mix in with those?
I mean, if you want to see the tunnel, I'll show you that.
Oh
in a
yeah,
minute.
look.
This on the way is perennial kale. So that's Taunton Dean,
Right.
which is local to here. And these are about 1.5 years old. But they just go on.
So how long would these last for?
Well, if they don't blow over, they can be 6-8 years old.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. And just nice leaves.
And these, I can grow these ones for a really long time. Do you keep these going?
Well, yeah, Cavolo Nero. In fact, we ought to pick the shoots, really, oughtn't we? But you mean you keep picking and they keep going?
Yeah. So once it gets to this point, it'll tighten down a bit during the winter time, and then as summer comes, it'll start throwing up new shoots again, and it goes off, and it has all these side shoots, and I just trim off some of those and replant them, and off it goes again. Yeah.
Because I've kept it going the best part of 3 years.
Yeah.
A few plants in one of my work gardens.
Yeah.
This guy on YouTube said he cuts them off at about there.
Oh, all right.
Then you get regrowth and that sort of discourages them from flowering. I'm going to try that actually.
Yeah. What's this little house in the back corner?
It's either a yurt or a cabin, depending on
right.
what word you fancy using.
Oh, okay, right.
A yabin.
A yabin.
So yeah, it's just like a pretty garden shed.
Yeah.
So this is our winter salad, which will crop for about another month until the outdoor salads are ready. And like these are lettuce that we're picking every week. So these were picked on Friday. And for example, if I take that one there, we're taking off the outer leaves like this. It's picking, not cutting.
Yes. Yeah.
And picked down to about that size.
Yeah.
So that was Friday morning. It's Monday. Yeah. God, that's only 3 days. That's all the growth.
I know, it's fantastic.
So it's going quite fast at the moment. But that was like the 10th time that lettuce has been picked.
So how
It
long
was sown September, planted October, and just keep cropping.
How long can you keep cropping them before they sort of are exhausted?
Well, these will go until June actually.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, except we'll need the space before that. This is going to be tomatoes. So yeah, as soon as we got enough lettuce outside, twist these out, spread some compost, plant tomatoes there.
Fantastic. So is there ever any part of the year that you're not able to do salad bags?
Little bit, just after Christmas. We pick it really hard just before Christmas to slow the plants down, have a bit of a break.
Probably a good idea, isn't it? You sound like very busy out here. So these are some of the more spicier ones down this end.
Right, that's the mustards.
Mustards, yeah. We've got lots of.
Pretty colours and strong flavours.
We have lots of self-seeding mustards going out through our garden all the time, and it's just brilliant because.
And what about one like that? Do you know the land
The landcress, yeah, that grows beautifully where we are as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so
So you're doing all right, aren't you?
yeah, must.
Are these looking all quite familiar?
Yeah, well, this end does look really familiar to me.
That one's green in the snow, so that's pretty much the hottest.
Yeah, right. Yep, that looks.
Strong taste of horse. Do you have a polytunnel?
No, I don't.
No. Yeah. I mean, here it just makes all the difference.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, I've seen just where we were then and this garden. I mean, it's magnificent what you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all these plants would survive outside over winter, but they wouldn't produce much. So that's the difference.
Our main issue is getting too much sun and too much heat. And we're starting to think that we'll actually put some kind of shade over our main salad bed for middle of summer.
Wow.
And that's kind of what we need to do to expand, because pretty much during the middle of summer we can't grow salads because they just get burnt. So what I've been doing is growing perennial plants and then underneath that hiding the salad plants in and around, and that seems to work. But I thought, well, I could actually get a really nice salad bed.
Covers like that white mesh.
Oh, that would still burn them.
In Thailand, I've been to organic salad gardens
Yep.
there. I don't know how similar the climate is, but
Yep.
obviously it's tropics.
Yep.
And there they grow everything under a green mesh.
Yes,
And
it
it
would need
is
to be a green
entirely
mesh.
for shade.
Yeah.
For that reason, it's
Yeah.
just otherwise things get frazzled.
Yeah.
They've got no issues with water
No.
there because they have a really
Yeah.
good rain season.
So I've got terraces and swales to slow down the water, to sink the water, massive amounts of organic matter in the soil, really building up the soil, lots of thick mulch, but then I still need the shade. And so that's kind of where I'll probably head. Yeah.
Well, I did. Well, I had lettuce actually in this bed here last summer, and we had a net over to stop the rabbits, so it was on protection. And then we had incredible hot sun, and I did actually put some of that on because it doesn't so much keep the warmth in when it's up above the ground, and it just kept the sun off.
Yeah, right.
So
So is
it's
this
the
a
only
new bed
time.
here?
Sorry?
This one's a new bed just getting started with the
Yeah, exactly.
cardboard?
So that's right. This is brand new. It was like what we're standing
Okay,
on,
right. So,
and cardboard compost.
yeah. So to get it started, you've just got the edging just to kind of
And
help it.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm always looking. Yeah, like we were saying about edges,
Yeah,
keeping the grass at bay.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, the cardboard helps that,
yeah.
doesn't it?
yeah.
And sawdust? Where do you source your sawdust from?
Well, yeah, this is from a local joiner. So I just get that free. Yes, you just have to sort of ask, don't you, really?
You do.
Just end up like the best scroungers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I have friends who actually photograph their cardboard stashes. Oh my God, look what I've got.
I know, and
Oh, they're all
it's such
so
a
pleased with it.
it's such a precious thing, really. You know, these resources.
So do you want to quickly look at this?
Oh yes, please.
So
And
that's,
what's this you've got here growing on a beautiful espalier?
Oh yeah, well, that's a 6-year-old plum tree, but it's on a pixie rootstock, so that's keeping it small.
Yep.
And that's been really good actually. Variety called opal. It likes this climate. Pretty well crops every year in late July, August.
Time.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and there's a perennial one, that Caucasian spinach.
Oh, I don't know this one. This is a new one.
What's the Latin name? It's got a funky name. It'll come to me. Gee, I must taste a bit actually. Because I think at this stage it's
Lovely.
tastier than.
We ate it when it was quite old and it was awful.
Quite nice. It has a slight bitterness about it, but mixed with a whole lot of other things, that would be just gorgeous. Yeah.
And it just grows up to the top of the shed. If
Oh,
you
it's a climber.
Yeah, it's
Oh, really? So Caucasian.
Yeah, that's right. And sorry, I'm afraid.
No, that's all right. I'll look that one up.
Look
That's
it up.
yep, that's great.
Yeah, what we're doing here is cropping 3 beds, and each one is roughly quarters.
And so is this to try and show people what they can do in a small yard? Is that what you're doing? Right.
Yeah, 25 square metres, and there's always something cropping. Mostly leaves at the moment.
So Charles is weighing everything that comes from here and it's all getting put on the website. So
Yep. I'll come closer to
there'll
you.
be,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's
So
right.
there'll be like all the stats for everything that's being produced
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Charles, like everything's being weighed.
Yep.
And so people can get an idea of like, okay, if this is my garden,
Yep.
this is how much
Brilliant.
food.
It is proving very popular on YouTube actually. And also there's a magazine, a national gardening magazine called Which, and they're doing a series on it next year.
Oh, brilliant.
With what's happening every month. So.
I think that's the key, isn't it? You're actually you're doing what you're doing for your thing, but you're also transforming into something that makes sense to other people and showing, you've just got a small space. This is what you can do, and you produce a huge amount from this. So I think
Yeah, I'm always saying that to people starting out, do less.
Yeah.
Do this well, do it intensively. Yeah.
It's the biggest reason why people leave allotments. So they take on an allotment which might be 3 or 4 times the size of this.
Oh, okay.
And it can be totally overwhelming. They
Yep.
misjudge how much time they've got, which
Yeah,
we
yeah.
all do.
Yep.
But also dig it so they get
Yeah,
Ah,
and then
right. Oh, I
they
know.
get abandoned.
Yep.
And
yeah.
so, but even if you just cover some of it with like some recycled polythene
Yep.
for 6 months while you get on with one bed,
Yeah, that's
you'll
right.
get some good food and you won't get
Yeah, that's right.
kind of a weedy
Yeah.
apocalypse.
And so, sorry.
This here was the boiler room when this was a nursery back in the
Oh, okay.
70s. And underneath most of these beds, as far as I can make out, is some kind of paving slabs. You know, this was a bit like a builder's site. So this is also a nice example for people with that problem a bit.
Yeah.
Just building on top.
Yeah.
So I didn't dig out the whatever it is, because you know, if we try and put in canes, they just go dunk.
But that's a lot of urban areas, isn't it?
Yeah,
You've got something
totally.
that you have,
Yeah.
or even rooftops, you know, for that matter. I mean, I know it's probably a bit heavy for rooftops, but just little courtyards and
Totally.
anything that you could transform using there.
If you can get hold of enough compost. But I mean, having said that, once you've done it, the first batch, it's not a lot every year.
Yeah.
And that's 93 kilos last year, to give you an idea
Wow.
from that.
And you know, I think a lot of the things that we really want to get fresh straight from our garden are the herbs and the leafy greens and the stir fries and all of that. You know, we can go buy a sack of potatoes somewhere else, but if we've got our fresh greens, that's where the nutrition, that's the main part of it, isn't it?
Isn't it? And the freshness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the
Get
microbes.
diversity. Yeah.
So, yeah, this is the engine room of the garden.
You know, I wish we could have something like this, but you know, there's two things. One is we'd just fry inside there, and secondly, or the hail would smash the glasses.
Oh, right. You got
Oh, yes, we do.
Here I've got a hotbed, so that's fresh horse manure, which the warmth as it rises up germinates the seeds. That's the main use of it.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So that's a few tomatoes and peppers, but a lot of things we've just sown. But it's already produced everything else we've seen out going around, like the lettuce and the spinach and peas and broad beans. They all start their life in here, but they're not in here for long. I'm planting things pretty small.
And that seems to, that obviously seem to, is it less, why do you plant them small? Is that for less root damage or just to get things going really rapidly? Or?
Well, it's just more efficient because they're not in here, so they're not taking up space. You're just getting through them fast. Because this is all the propagating space I've got for quite a big area. And everything starts life in here except carrots and parsnip. You know, all the vegetables out there started life in this
So
space.
from seeding this out to getting it out, how long?
3 weeks in the summer, 4 at the moment, on average.
And what's your mix that you use for propagation?
I'm buying a potting compost. I've experimented with making my own. It hasn't worked very well.
Yeah, I've been experimenting too, and I'm still struggling to find my best mix. So
Yeah,
I might follow your path. And
The professionals know what they're doing.
right.
I wanted to show you this actually. This is a nice example of propagation where I was given this big tomato plant, which is way too big for the time of year, and I took a side shoot 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and it's already done
Oh
that.
my gosh, look at that.
And that's simply putting that side shoot in.
So you just gently slice up with a bit of a heel, and then no.
I mean, literally just taking a side shoot. I can't see any that are quite big enough at the moment. But it wasn't very big. And but it's sitting on the warmth there. That definitely helps. In fact, I'm overwintering some plants, so that's like those side shoots I took last October from this one variety that you can't get seeds of anymore. It's F1 hybrid. So you can't keep the seed either.
No, right.
But if you take a side shoot, put it in compost and keep it over winter.
It's cloning it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that was last sown about 6 years ago. And that'll go in the ground quite soon.
And then another whole lot of extra salads for...
Salad and garlic. But it's very interesting too with the no-dig how, this is continuous cropping. So it's never any gap. It's winter vegetables and then we take them out, put the compost, tomatoes, aubergines, everything straight away. And then they come out in October and, within a day, it's got salads in again. And I think that helps the soil to keep open and alive. And
Well,
Feed the microbes.
it's a living system, isn't it? You
Yep.
know, the plants and the soil are in harmony. It's not...
Totally, yeah. And that's where, for me, the no-dig is so important. I just couldn't imagine wanting to disturb all that going on. That's giving this amazing result all the time.
Well, I mean, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Really
I mean, generally, a lot of people come here and say, just taken amazed at the health of the plants.
Yeah. Well, they just look so vibrant. I mean, did you get any pest issues really? You said slugs a little bit, but
Well, you can see there's very little slug damage, which can be quite common on salads. There certainly are. If I grow plants out of season, so like I wouldn't be sowing landcress now or rocket because they get flea beetle,
yeah. So I think
but sow them in August.
that's a key thing, isn't it? We try and grow things when we're not meant to be growing them, and just
Yeah.
by observing that over time
Yeah.
and just shifting and changing our practices,
Yeah.
rather than
totally.
trying to fight it and struggle it and do
Yeah.
something about it, we
Yeah.
shift how we plant. I
Yeah.
think that's really
Yeah.
Yeah, avoidance.
yes, the very best strategy.
Yeah.
And basically, these are salads that are the same ones that we saw in the polytunnel, sown at the same time, planted here in October.
Wow.
But they haven't been so productive because it's obviously colder out here.
Yeah.
I'm using the mesh to just keep the wind off a bit.
They look great still, though, don't they? I mean, even though it's been really cold.
Well, yeah, and I must say part of that is this amazing variety of lettuce called Grenoble Red.
This one
So
here.
it's from Grenoble in the French Alps, and I've tried a lot of different varieties over the years.
Yep.
That one always wins. It's
Yeah,
just
looks brilliant.
so reliable. So what I do, I keep one plant for seed, and I think having home safe seed really helps.
Yeah.
More vigour.
So just one plant?
Quality.
You said? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
No.
lettuce you only need one.
Well, was it like 10,000 seeds from one plant
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something,
sure.
isn't it?
I mean, yeah,
More than one needs, but
But
yeah,
also because
brilliant.
it's self-pollinating, isn't it? So you don't.
Yeah. So you only need one.
Mm.
Yeah. There's 3 strips going down to the apple
Okay.
trees.
Yep.
And this one is the one where we fork once a year, put a fork in and just
Yep.
leave it. And then this one is no dig, so that's forking no dig comparison.
Yep.
And then the 3rd strip is also no dig but with different compost, which is cow manure compared to green waste or mushroom compost.
So this is your compost or different compost?
No, actually none of these have homemade as it happens.
Oh,
This is
okay.
green waste and mushroom, and that's cow manure.
Yep.
And that's green waste and mushroom, but it's forked. So it's-
Okay, so
Just
what are
comparing
your
those three
observations over time that you've
Yeah.
seen?
well, over 5 years, this is the one that's 5% less, basically,
Right.
where we've been forking.
Yep.
But another one I'm trying is no rotation. So that's 5th year in a row broad beans there.
Right.
And then that will be cabbage in June for the 5th year in a row.
Yep.
And beyond that, it's potatoes 5 years in a row again. So just to see.
So what is your thinking then about? So you've got 2 comments there. One about forking and no forking.
Yeah.
So your comment is that the forking diminishes productivity by
Just very slightly. It's certainly not helping.
yeah, and the rotation as no rotation. How do you feel
Yeah.
about that then?
Well, just because this whole trial originated from Japanese natural agriculture, and they don't do any rotation. They actually believe it's better not to. They call it continuous cropping. They completely turn it on its head to how we think about it.
Yeah. And so when people come here from an organic gardening perspective, and you start to say these things, do they sort of freak out?
Yeah, they recoil a bit actually.
Yeah.
The people I find harder to teach are the ones who are very well versed
Yeah.
in all the traditional practice.
Because it is a flip, isn't it, of thinking around that.
Yeah.
What about, I mean, one of the questions that I always get asked is about companion planting, and because ours is much more sort of a polyculture, it is
Right.
one big companion planting in and of itself, but for a garden like this, how do you approach that question?
Well, this is companion planting. You know, that, or like we got spinach and landcress there, whatever it might be. It depends on the scale you're looking at it partly. You know, if you look at this in the whole garden sense, which is still not huge, but there's a lot going on here, all mixed up.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm not like growing all my brassicas in one area, going back to the rotation thing.
Yeah.
I'll give them a gap of about a year usually. So I do some rotation. But yeah, mixing it up for me is important.
But I think that also challenges too some of the common notions, because you always see those charts that say this with that, and really what I think we need to expand our concept of what
Yeah.
companion planting, because like you said, it's the whole garden,
Yeah.
and in my garden, it's my whole system as well is one big
Right.
diverse
I
planting
tried
system.
some of the classic ones back in the 80s, you know, like onions are supposed to deter carrot root fly.
Yeah.
I actually got more carrot root fly where
Did
I had onions. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that would always happen, but
No.
it just opened my eyes a bit to how it's not that systematic, and it's not
Yeah,
like using
yeah.
pesticides. You know, you can't put one plant next to
No,
another and say
that's
that
right.
would be no pest kind of
Yeah,
thing. Nature doesn't work like that.
no,
But, you know, in the general sense, having a mixture
Yeah.
is good.
yeah. So
Also,
that,
but
you
with
go.
companion planting, with the charts,
Mm.
it can really get people unhappy.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
can I've, you know, I did it myself back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
I was spent so long working out what like what
Yeah,
and what.
that's right. And it's so
And you end up
complex.
quite distressed because you're thinking, oh my goodness, this says you
know.
can't put peas with this, and
I know,
but
I-
I've only got a small amount of space.
Yeah, I get people coming to me quite overwhelmed, thinking, I
Yeah.
don't know where to start, or, you know, it's all too overwhelming. And so we just try and, simplify and start small and start.
That's another theme of my work, definitely, is simplifying.
Yeah,
And I've just put up this online course, and a pretty common thread is simplifying and time saving.
Yep.
Those two things.
because they're some of the biggest things that people say, well, no, I can't garden, don't have enough time, it's too complex, I don't get it, I don't want to do that much research.
And I'm always just start small. Just plant one bed, see what happens. You get your hands dirty, you'll enjoy it.
That's great. So any other things that you've found, you know, that are common organic gardening or, you know, gardening type advice that needs flipping on its
And a
head?
big one actually is the what is compost and that it's not fertiliser. Even in organic gardening world, I've noticed that a lot of advice like you don't put your compost on before winter because the nutrients will wash out. But you know, that's not composted. The nutrients are not water soluble, so you know you can put it on any time of year.
Yeah.
Again, it's quite liberating
Yes.
when it's convenient. You know, this would not be working if that wasn't the case, because I'm mostly putting my compost on before Christmas. A lot of rain washes through before we plant, and it works very well.
So what it seems to be doing then is preparing and activating the soil so that when it really
it's feeding the soil organisms basically that, and that's for me is what compost is. It's not a source of nutrients, although it is indirectly, but it's food for microbes.
So do you also think, this is a random question, but do you feel like it's helping to prepare the soil and keep the soil temperature more stable somehow? Is it keeping it slightly warmer to...
Yeah, well, I think so, because like where we're seeing much earlier growth on the no dig bed every spring, and you've got also compost is dark, so in early sun it warms up more.
But also the more life, I'm just imagining there's more life, there's more things going on, perhaps there's some...
Everything dancing about.
Yeah,
in the
that's
soil,
right, I
keeping it
don't
warm.
know, maybe.
You haven't broken up any of the capillary zones in the soil.
Yep.
So you've got a much better flow of warmth from below, you know, the earth's warmth, and likewise better drainage down. So that will all be helping better soil condition in the spring. And it just noting, you know, if you just do it in this very simple way, it ticks pretty much every single box. And climate change, you're keeping your carbon in there.
Well, that's right. I was just talking to Martin
Crawford.
Crawford. I was just in
Yeah.
his garden a couple of mornings ago, and he was saying he's done some studies about the amount of carbon that's been able to be stored in his soil, and it's off the charts. And it's phenomenal, really.
Right.
And that is because it is just, everything's just going back into the soil. There's no digging. It's just, everything's feeding the soil. And his soil carbon has soared.
Oh, has he published that research?
I don't know, you should ask him, because they did studies on his field and then just the field beside, which was what that was like 25 years ago. When I first went there 27 years ago, when it was an empty paddock, and seeing the difference, it's just amazing, really. So that's really, and I can imagine your soil carbon would be...
Yeah, it would be quite high, I think. I mean, what I'm finding now is I don't need quite so much compost. You know,
Oh, that's interesting.
I scale back a bit, but it's very intensive cropping, so I'm not ever going to put no compost, but it might go from 2 inch to 1 inch. I mean, I've done it before. I use less compost than this, and you just don't get so much produce quite.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so is there any other feeding that you do?
Well, yeah, a little bit of wood in the past. I didn't used to do this, but having got more aware recently of soil fungi,
Yes.
and I feel this is really good food for fungi.
Yeah, absolutely.
Woody stuff. But I'm not putting it on thick, and this is not thick enough that would, you know, there's the compost below. It's not stopping the weeds. It's not that kind of mulch.
No, right.
I mean, all my mulches, I'm thinking of them in terms of soil food,
Yes.
if you like, or
Yep.
organism food.
Yep.
If you get that right and you don't disturb the soil, you don't get the weeds anyway.
Yeah.
So that's more what it is.
Obviously.
I think people who've been used to digging or rotivating, whatever, they can't imagine that it could be like this
Yeah.
with so few weeds.
So it'd be so much less work, I would imagine, too.
Yeah, well, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, this is very efficient because we're spending most of our time sowing, planting, picking.
Yeah. Not weeding and digging and
No.
And I mean, weeding would be one of the biggest things that you would be dealing with normally in a garden like this,
Yeah.
wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Hours and hours a week, I would
I mean, we do put time in the compost heaps, but that's a more joyful thing, I feel, than weeding.
Weeding can be.
Last year, so my allotment is heavy clay,
Yep.
And last year I didn't mulch it. I
Yep.
did an experiment. I imagined I was pregnant with 2 broken legs and whatever,
Yep.
you know, couldn't mulch,
Yeah.
whatever the reason. And so instead of spreading the compost on in the winter,
Yep.
I in the spring started to make plant food
Yep.
with your question about feeds.
Yep.
So I used comfrey, nettles, anything
Yeah,
else
okay.
I had, big barrels,
Yep.
made it on the site, could
Nice.
put everything from the hedgerows. And it was absolutely fine. I mean, the
Yep.
plot it's been no dig.
Yep.
Last year it was no dig for like 9 years.
Yep.
So it was in really good condition. But it was so much more work.
Yeah,
Because
right.
otherwise it's once a year I mulch.
Yeah, okay.
And that's it. That's
Right.
all I have to do.
Wow.
Whereas last year I was gathering, making the feeds, etc.
Yep.
Then having to carry watering cans and
yep.
water. Didn't help that it was the driest year
Yeah.
anyone can remember. So it was a bit more.
Yeah.
But it still worked absolutely fine. And I make a lot of plant food. I grow. I've got like a potted forest garden and things at
Yeah,
home.
yep.
And I make a lot of plant food for them.
Right, yeah.
Because that does need it.
But
Because
they're in pots and you have to feed them. You haven't got the
Yeah,
soil.
exactly.
So you're saying that you have no other,
I'm not using anything else. Yeah, it's just
nothing,
the compost.
just the compost.
I do occasionally put on a bit of rock dust, not in the whole garden, just to see really, keep an eye on what difference it might make. I think if you had a soil starting off quite poor, that's something I'd recommend.
So do you do big soil analyses before you start, or you just go, oh, here's an error, start composting straight away?
Well, I do it more with plants. I mean, you know, like looking at a site generally, seeing what's growing and getting a feel of.
Well, you can tell quite a lot. You don't have to
Yeah.
dig down, do you? You
Yeah.
can, the soil, the plants.
I've had experience with soil tests, and I just don't feel that they've been very accurate actually. And I think these plants tell.
And they tell you about the parts that you choose to investigate. They don't tell you about the whole system.
And how it all fits together, how it's all interacting. Yeah, it's a total snapshot.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, again, that simplifies things.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Rather, you get quite caught up on those things. And what I'm hearing really is it is just about focusing on soil, building soil health, feeding the soil, and just. Yeah, I mean that's it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's and just understanding like how plants feed as well, because I think we've been overawed and overshadowed by the blooming fertilizer industry. And you know, they're always trying to sell the line about nutrients, plant food. And although obviously these need nutrients, they can get them indirectly through soil organisms like millipedes eating and then excreting, and the millipede poo is really good, for example.
Absolutely.
But it's not that you're putting on something that the roots then swallow as sort of gulp nutrients. It's not like that. And having those kinds of understandings, I think, really helps in developing a better gardening practice, because you can relate more to what you're doing.
Well, it changes it, doesn't it, from a linear approach to a systems approach, and that, it's a life approach. It's supporting life to do its thing, and you're really just kind of helping certain things in a way.
And what's going on in there is really complicated, in fact, but you don't need to know
No,
it
you
all.
don't need to know, do you?
The
Do as
organisms
least as
take care of it.
possible and let that
Yeah.
do most as possible.
I'm just looking to cover them and feed them and let them get on with it.
And I can imagine the people that get to have your produce at the end of, when you harvest, they would absolutely love it. I can imagine you get fantastic
we
feedback.
could have some for lunch.
That would be beautiful. Well, thank you so much for showing us around your garden, Charles.
That's
It's
a
been
pleasure.
really wonderful. And thank you so much, Steph, too, for all your input. I'd love to see your garden one day, too.